So I'm going to read a poem I wrote on November 8th, 2019 called Ship of Theseus. I'm going to read it and then I'm going to tell you my own personal thoughts on the piece I wrote, what it meant to me, why I wrote it, and that sort of thing, a little background on it. And of course, dissecting poetry, it means whatever it means to any individual person. But this is what it meant to me, so I'll go into detail about that. So this is Ship of Theseus. If you found the stories of my life and pieced together these parts, would you know me? If I am becalmed in seas long dreaming, replacing thoughts for driftwood, I admit I would become another to you. But ply away at my hull, old age and misty fog banks, shipwrecks from adventure. Would you not still know me as I know myself? Theseus, take away these boards. I do not need them. I will show my face as a sun of joy, and others will feel warm and know that we are alive. Is this not enough for you? The trappings of Christmases and birthdays, a concerned look on a friend's face, lost in a sea of uncertainty. How can you deny what you feel? Worrying over broken planking floating in the tide. Do not remember me, these puffs of smoke in the mind. Leave that for the undertow, and be with me at every day's new dawn. So it's interesting. When I wrote this, November 8th, 2019, I was undergoing a lot, I'm a Scientologist, I was undergoing a lot of spiritual change at that time. Still am, why not? There's all sorts of new awareness and growth we can all experience. But I was going through a lot of change at that time, especially. And I studied philosophy in college. And so one of the philosophical conundrums or challenges was, okay, so, and it was just using Theseus from Greek mythology and story just to illustrate a point, not because Theseus was particularly important, but what it was, okay, so Theseus, he's going to go off on these amazing adventures, right? He's going to get on his ship and his crew, and they're going to go off and get on these amazing adventures. And, okay, so obviously the ship goes through all this turmoil, and they have to replace parts, and things break, and masts and sails and whatnot, and he returns home, okay? And so this is a problem in philosophy of identity. Okay, so that ship returns home. It leaves, and it's made of certain material. And then as it comes home, the conundrum is it's made of entirely different material. They've replaced everything on it. Is it the same ship? Right. They didn't replace it all at once. Very slowly over time. And of course, everybody knows these days you go, well, the cells regenerate in the body every 7 years, and So it's a problem in identity. How can you say that the thing is still the thing that launched when it's a different thing coming back? And, people like to say, oh, it isn't, or it is, or what have you. And for me, the poem it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter at all, because that physical body is unimportant. And so this is my answer to that philosophical conundrum or problem, you might say. And so, and it's the idea of like, I think many of us, when we reflect and have thought about it, we go, well, what's going to define me, and who am I? And maybe some of us believe that we'll come back and live again in another life, right? That's what I personally know to be true, right? So if you come back in another life, well, I'm concerned with my identity. I'm concerned with remembering who I am. And by remembering, I have to remember where I've been. And that's the only way that I'll know myself is, will I remember that I had bacon for breakfast on Tuesday? Will I remember my name was Ben? Will I remember all these things? And that, some folks, and very understandably, because that's your identity now, is these remembrances. At least that's what a person often believes, is is what identifies you? Well, your track, your history, where you've been. And again, my own spiritual revelations have been, my own personal ones have been, now that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You can piece together the stories of my life, and does that mean you know me? Does that mean you know how I express who I am inside, right? So I say no. You'll know some interesting things, and we'll relate to them, and I'll understand them, and you'll understand them, and so you can point me out, and I can go yes. But I don't personally believe that accounts for who I am, where I've been, or that I remember it. Right? If I am becalmed in seas long dreaming, it's just to create a sort of a spiritual example of a state of beingness, I guess. Replacing thoughts for driftwood, right? So replacing thoughts for driftwood, right? So building a body or constructing oneself and building identity, right? And so if you built a new identity, I admit I would become another to you. But ply away at my hole, pull these boards away, right? Old age, misty fog banks, shipwrecks from adventure, and that, I've got a knee that has had torn cartilage for a lot of years. achy fingers where I broke my hand a long time ago. All these different things that we get into, and we identify with. That's memory, that's history, that sort of thing. But if you pulled away at all that and got rid of all that, would you still know me? Would I still know myself? What would that be? And the exclamation, Theseus, take away these boards. I do not need them. Right? That's not what I need. I will show my face as a son of joy, and others will feel warm and know that we are alive. Is this not enough for you? Right? And for many, and I understand it, being in this mortal coil, being in this cycle of birth and death with forgetfulness, not remembering who one is, it can be quite interesting. And here the way I read that line, the trappings of Christmases and birthdays, I sort of spit at it, yeah, I love Christmas. I'm not a big birthday celebrator, but I love Christmas. But how many I was thinking at the time, how many Christmases have I had? How many more in this life will I have? And how important is that? Christmas has, this last year, Henry, my son, turned 3, and he really understood more, he'll understand even more later, but what Christmas is, he started to really get it. So it was a new event for me, but for the past number of years, I always love Christmas, Christmas time, families getting together, but it's become a different thing over time, and different from what it was. Less the emotional excitement of being young and presents and time off from school, which I always hated. So a concerned look on a friend's face, and I was thinking of a specific friend at that time, as I've gone on my own personal spiritual journey, I've had one or more friends, express concern, will we still be friends? It's well, it's up to us, isn't it? Lost in a sea of uncertainty, how can you deny what you feel? And there again, people, I wrote that line with a few of the ones just before it, just with the idea people are, I'm a brain, or I'm this body, and they get really wrapped up in it and demand the identity of it and demand that you identify with it because for some reason they're identifying with it, and if they don't, and there's this weird feeling what if I don't do that? And it's what's the answer to that? I'll let you answer that for yourself. But it is odd that people get super wrapped up and worried about that. Worrying over broken planking floating in the tide. Do not remember me, these puffs of smoke in the mind. Leave that for the undertow. Just leave that for its own, the cycle of the life and death of bodies through time. Just leave that for that cycle of action. And be with me at every day's new dawn. Right? Because we create life. That's what my own personal belief, that's what you and I do. We create life. We're not this body. So it was a very spiritual poem for me, and it was at a time when I was experiencing a tremendous amount of spiritual change. And like I say, I still am, but I've gotten a little bit more used to it. I've still written many other poems over this, since November 8th, 2019, spiritual and emotional and things like this. But anyway, it's been quite an experience. So that's why I wrote that poem. That's what it meant to me. That old philosophical problem, I was like, oh, I have an answer. I have my answer to this. It doesn't matter. Theseus's ship doesn't matter. The planking doesn't matter. The time on the ocean doesn't matter. The adventure doesn't matter. It's beautiful. It's its own expression, its own art, its own painting, but it isn't what's essential to the ship, to Theseus, to being Greek, to any of that. So anyway, there's my first poem. I'll read other people's poems as well on this channel, but this will be the first, or this playlist. The channel is Hey Henry. I built this for my son. This will be the first poem I read on this playlist. I hope you enjoyed.